Hello, hello, hello. Here we are again for another fantastic session. Welcome to those probably in California or on the West Coast in Hawaii, probably waking up and joining us. You have lots to catch up on. We started over in New Zealand and Fiji and have made our way across the globe, sharing stories from all walks of life and all industries and all countries. So this is a very, very special session, though, and I'm delighted to be facilitating this. We wouldn't be who we are at the Sustainable Procurement Pledge if it wasn't for those procurement leaders, those organisations that are supporting and donating us. So one of the most important SPP champions we have are the team at Schneider Electric, not just part of the challenge, but also part of the solution, I would say. One of the most important people that we can have on this session, telling us how they are embedding sustainability into procurement, how they are leading the net zero challenge. But it's not just them. We also have one of their partners with us, one of the companies that's working with them in the value chain to tell that story as well. So we're going to hear a real interesting story from the value chain in partnership here today. So we have Dan Bartel, obviously the Chief Procurement Officer of Schneider Electric, Christoph, the VP of Sustainable Procurement at Schneider Electric, and Catherine Glasser as well from Henkel, who's the Corporate VP of there as well. So we're delighted to have you with us, delighted to be hearing your story. We do want your questions, so do be aware that there's a recording happening, but we do want your questions and thoughts. It's very rare we get the opportunity to quiz these people on these topics, so don't pass that by. Do use the opportunity as best you can. Be conscious of what you're putting in the chat, but we do want to hear your thoughts and your feedback as well. We're going to start with Dan about what it means to be an impact company. Then we're going to hear from Christoph about what it means to embed sustainability in procurement at Schneider Electric. And then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into their zero carbon program. And then we're going to be hearing also from their partners at Henkel about what it means to bring it to life and work in partnership. So it's going to be a great story, I'm sure. Dan, huge thanks for everything you do for us. Over to you.
Yeah, hey, thanks a lot, Oliver, and thanks for the invitation today. And welcome, everybody. Look, I'm just going to do a little bit of a setup for the conversation here today. I'll talk about what Schneider is about briefly, right? I'll talk about what it means for us to be an impact company. And then I'll get into a little bit about where sustainability fits in the agenda of procurement, right? Before handing it over to Christoph. So regarding Schneider, we're a technology company at the end of the day. We provide energy and automation, digital solutions for efficiency and sustainability for customers really all around the world. So we're 35 billion euros in revenue, 130,000 employees in 100 countries. And in procurement, we manage about 16 billion euros in spend. So we've got scale and we're really kind of everywhere in two key businesses, right? Energy management and industrial automation. And those two businesses are riding two kind of macro trends, right? The transition to sustainable energy, as well as digitization and automation of industries, what we call Industry 4.0. Our company's pretty balanced in terms of end markets and geographies, right? So we're not particularly heavy or light in any one of those. And we serve customers in 4 end markets, right? So we're focused on buildings, all types of buildings, data centers. We're one of the biggest companies that electrify data centers globally. Industry, and of course, infrastructure. So that, in a nutshell, is what Schneider is about. And now I'll talk a little bit about the why, right? So normally you're supposed to start with why. I started with the what. Apologies for that. But at Schneider, our mission is to empower all to make the most of our energy and resources to bridge progress and sustainability for everyone. So we play on both sides of the equation. We lead by example in our own ecosystem while also providing solutions for our customers and help them on their sustainability journey. So sustainability really is our business, right? And it's for that reason that we consider ourselves to be an impact company. And what it means to be an impact company, we can summarize in these 5 guiding principles. First of all, performance, right? The foundation for doing good. You know, for all the tens of thousands of people in Schneider that are eligible for variable compensation, you know, the annual incentive and also long-term stock awards, 20% of that compensation is directly linked to our collective achievement on our sustainability targets. And it's been like that for quite a long time, right? So we provide that financial incentive and drive the performance of the company directly linked to sustainability. And we work with all the stakeholders in the ecosystem, right? So customers, of course, we address our own operations. We work, of course, with our suppliers, which we talk about today, the communities where we operate, and also investors, right? Investors care. They buy our stock because we're an impact company, and that drives a lot of things and drives a lot of behaviors in the right direction, right? So we cover all the dimensions of ESG, of course, and for energy management and industrial automation, we consider ourselves to be the digital partner for sustainability and efficiency. And they're really at the core of, say, the value proposition towards customers in both those businesses, right? Now, the model and the culture is set up for global and local impact. So we have what we call 11+1 targets in the Schneider Sustainability Impact. These are our sustainability objectives as a company. 11 global targets, right? And one target that we leave to each of the country presidents to decide how they can best impact ESG in their local communities, right? So again, in Schneider, we consider ourselves to be an impact company. It means that in procurement, we need to take a specialized approach to how we manage. So thanks, Christoph. The mission of our function can be characterized really equally in three equally important pillars, right? So we enable top-line growth through innovation and quality. We drive financial results, right, through professional cost management and cash management with our suppliers, right? And that's purposely put in the middle because I think no matter what, always you have kind of at the core of your procurement function, the financial responsibility to help enable the business to perform financially, right? But then on the right side, we drive and enable a world-class level of sustainability with our supply partners and doing all this to deliver to our customers' expectations, right? So with our network of suppliers across many different tiers and geographies, we influence one of the biggest industrial footprints, right? And every action or lack of action has far-reaching consequences, right? So whenever our procurement teams are thinking about what is my mission, what do I have to deliver, what we want them to think and realize is that they see sustainability as one of the key elements to their role. And our role as buyers is to ensure that there's a balance between the top line growth, the bottom line impact, and sustainable sourcing, right? And we want to avoid a tilt in any one direction to skew our performance. So, we've developed and deployed this thing called a Sustainable Procurement Framework, which addresses climate action, resource scarcity, human rights, and a variety of other programs which serve our suppliers and procurement colleagues. And to make sure we have a balanced and let's say a balanced focus on that topic, we've got a sustainability leader in our organization, in my direct team, a guy named Christophe Quincampoix, who I'll invite now to explain how we operationalize this vision into our procurement practices. Christophe?
Thank you, Dan. Thanks a lot for this introduction. So now that you all understand how important sustainability is at Schneider Electric and how deeply embedded sustainability is in procurement function, I will jump into what, as Dan just introduced, what we build concretely to drive sustainability with our suppliers. And to do so, I will walk you through our sustainable procurement framework. As it is all summarized, you'll see on one page. It helps us internally in procurement, but also with other functions to understand, embrace, and contribute to sustainability with our suppliers. And it also greatly helps our suppliers to understand where they can contribute and where to focus their energy towards our global common goals. So you'll see it's very pragmatic. What is critical for us is to act now, and I heard that from a lot of the sessions today as well. So we decided not to wait that everything is known, defined, or perfect. So this is our own way to bridge the gap between the vision and the execution. And by no way you will hear me telling you that it's perfect, by far not. But we are acting and we're making progress, and I'll show you that right now. So let me walk you through the sustainable procurement framework. So it all starts with a vision. And there was a session 2 hours ago, Oliver, in which you spend a lot of time about collaboration. And I can definitely tell you that the word here that I put is the most important one that you need to remember. Everything we decided to do in sustainable procurement is really hand in hand with our suppliers to make sure that we commonly accelerate their sustainable agenda. We often see in Schneider Electric, we're very into marathon, as you know. So we often say that sustainability is a marathon without a finish line. So you really have to support and work hand in hand with your suppliers. You cannot just ask them and impose them something. I'll let you read the vision, the important word being the collaboration. Now let me move you through the different programs we have, and I will be looking this through the lens of ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So first of all, I'll go very quickly. It's a supply code of conduct. We all have that. It summarizes the most fundamental requirements that we have towards our suppliers. It's a document that we revise almost yearly, and that we sign when we sign a contract. Then the first important program, it's the duty of vigilance. So you have to see this program as a de-risking, ESG de-risking program. Basically, what we're doing here, we are following the RBA, Responsible Business Alliance framework. So we inject our 52,000 suppliers into that system. The RBA system is giving us back a level of risk between 0 and 10. And what we decided to do is to focus our energy on the lowest score, of course, and go deeper into this. So what we're doing, part of my team are auditors that I'm sending on site at the supplier, at those most risky suppliers, and they spend a full 2 days, 3 days to going through an ESG audit. Following again the RBA framework, we're checking about 180 different checkpoints here. Things like verifying that an emergency door is not locked, asking an extract of the badging system to be able to compute the working hours, verifying that the working hours meet the maximum or is not above the maximum of the overtime for that region or that country. And also we interview the workers of the suppliers without their management. So you really have to see this as a de-risking program. We're doing around 200, well, the target that we set ourselves is a minimum of 200 audits, on-site audits per year with our suppliers. We also launched 2 years ago a desktop audit. And this desktop audit is sent to suppliers that are less risky, of course. The on-site audit are focused on suppliers with the highest risk. So 200 minimum. Last year we did 223 audits, and we did 657 desktop audit. Of course, whenever we see something strange in the desktop audit, we reserve the right to do the on-site audit. Now, the point is not the audit, it's to identify non-conformity. In average, we have about 15 non-conformity by audit by suppliers, and it's to work with suppliers on solving those non-conformity. And this is the most critical part. Now, the worst that happens, and I really say the worst that happens, is when we have to disengage suppliers because it's a failure of our team. If we have to disengage, it means we're leaving the company alone with their issues. We're leaving the workers of that suppliers alone. But sometimes, when we're pushed, when people don't want, we have to do that. We do that very rarely. Again, it's a failure. It happens once a year, maximum twice a year out of all of the audits that we're doing. The next one, next level up, you really have to see this as going more into requirements. So the next program is ISO 26000 that we're doing with EcoVadis, with the rating of EcoVadis. So here, the target is really about strategic suppliers. So all strategic suppliers have to take the assessment. And what we're tracking in that program is that the average score of our suppliers is improving year over year. Last year, we reached about 60.3 with an improvement of 1.7. We give ourselves a target that by 2025, we have to reach an average score of 65. We also introduced a minimum score under which we are demoting the supplier, demoting from strategic to authorized, which means that with an authorized supplier, we can continue to do business, but we cannot grow the business because we want to grow the business with strategic supplier. And I tell you, this simple thing is really working. We introduced that last year, and we increasing this minimum score year over year. Now we'll cover quickly the strategic programs that we have with a commitment for 2025. The first one In the environmental pillar, in the climate pillar, is the zero carbon project. Commitment that we took is that by 2025, we will be reducing the GHG emission from the top 1,000 suppliers operation by 50%. And I will stop here. I will not tell more because I will deep dive just after that. I want to spend a little bit more time on the other programs. The next one is about green material. So the commitment that we took here is that by 2025, we want to increase the green material content in our product to 50%. Here again, I told you about being pragmatic. We were extremely pragmatic. The first thing is that when you look around, there is no such thing as a green material. So we had to, that is, I mean, not such a thing that green material, that it's agnostic from the supplier. So what we did here is we define what we mean by green material, and we focus on the material that is the biggest impact in our product, the biggest weight, like steel, thermoplastic, aluminum, and so on. So we started with those. Whenever we define a green material, we're always following three directions. First, low CO2 emissions. Second, high content of recycled material. And third, no harm for the people and the planet. And so following this three direction, we define what green steel is, what green thermoplastic is, what green aluminum is. Sorry, and we're publishing those into our annual report. So it's totally open that anybody can have a look to it or challenge us on it. So again, very pragmatic approach. As of last year, end of last year, we reached about 18% of green material. The next one is sustainable packaging. And here the commitment that we took is that 100% of our packaging will be using recycled cardboard and will not be using single-use plastic by 2025. Recycled cardboard, I think that's clear for everybody. Now, when we speak about no single-use plastic, we use the definition, the European definition of single-use plastic. That means that you can reuse a plastic for what it was originally designed for. If I'm taking the example of a little plastic bag in which we put screws and that we put in the box of a product, like a circuit breaker as an example. So that means that if we respect that definition, we should be building a reverse supply chain to collect those little plastic bags, to reuse them as little plastic bag to put screws in it, which you can imagine is not possible. So this will translate by removing plastic in most of the cases of our packaging. Most of the primary packaging. In secondary packaging, like plastic pallet, of course, we can continue to use it because we reuse the plastic pallet for what it was originally designed for. So the first three strategic programs that we have in the environment. Then we have REACH, ROS, conflict minerals, to which we add cobalt. I will not spend time on it. We all have to comply with this, and we all have programs on that. It's at the border of environmental and social. This is why you have it overlapping on both pillars. The next and fourth strategic program is decent work. So you have to see the decent work is to the S of ESG, to the social of ESG, what the zero carbon project is to the E of ESG, to the environmental part. It's as strategic, but really covering social human rights of our suppliers. The commitment here that we took is that by 2025, 100% of our strategic suppliers will provide decent work to their employees. Here again, you may ask me, how do you define decent work? So we are following the ILO framework, but we had to go one step deeper into the details to have a definition that we can operationalize. So we define the decent work under 10 pillars and about 67 checkpoints. The pillars are like employment opportunity for in which you find migrant workers' right, modern slavery, and so on. Adequate earnings and productive work in which you will be finding living wage as an example, and other topics on the wage, knowledge about the upgrade, trainings, and so on. So living wage is a very good example to explain what I was telling you, that it's really if you go from the bottom of this framework to the top, we are increasing the requirements. Because what we check in duty of vigilance when we speak about wages is that the minimum legal wage is applied by the supplier to the employees. And we focus on the most risky suppliers. Now, on decent work, what we will be asking the supplier is that they have a living wage policy and they enforce the living wage policy. Other pillars in this decent work, it's like decent work hours, stability and security of work, social dialogues, diversity and inclusion, safe work, social protection, balancing work and family life. It goes up to that extreme as well. And then purchasing practice. We want the supplier to start asking that as well to their own suppliers. So very, I would say, complete program, extremely bold, but we are progressing correctly. So last year, we really launched the program with a series of trainings to the suppliers. I should have said that earlier. All of those programs, it's not something that we dump on the knees of the suppliers. When I was speaking about collaboration, and I will deep dive on the zero carbon project, it's really walking the progress with the suppliers. So we give them trainings whenever they have issues with one of the pillars. We are trying to work with them to solve it, basically sharing what we have been implementing in our own almost 200 facilities as well. So again, we don't dump that to them. So we did the same in decent work that we did with the zero carbon project. The first step after the training is asking the executive of our suppliers to engage into the program. And the second step is doing the assessment. So as of end of last year, we had about 59% of suppliers that have accepted. It doesn't mean that the other refused, because we're going by wave. We only had a few numbers of suppliers that refuse. Whenever they refuse, we start working with them to explaining better about the program. And in terms of compliance, because it started last year, we had 1%. The biggest work that we have here is really in verifying thoroughly the answers from the suppliers to the audit. And I reserve the right to send my audit team whenever we have questions about the answers. But there is, first of all, a lot of back and forth to make the assessment, to explain to the suppliers, to make sure they understood, to verify their policies and so on. Next program is on the social side, and it's the last one, it's social excellence. Everything I've been telling you so far is truly focused on the first tier of our suppliers, so our own suppliers. What we're trying to do with social excellence is basically going deeper into our supply chain and addressing tier 2, tier 3, tier X, ideally up to the mines. Basically, the intent of that program is that we would be able to put let's call it a social excellence sticker on the product, but it's more as an image, what I'm saying, and explaining to the customer that what they buy as a product is not only socially and human rights compliant with in our own practices in our own factories, not only compliant in our tier 1, but the same compliant for tier 2, tier 3, and up to tier X. So we launched this program end of last year, and the goal is to come up with process tools and to apply it to one product line by 2025. And then quickly about governance. Governance is everything about knowing all of those projects. How do we qualify in terms of ESG a new supplier? How do we measure the ESG performance of a supplier? How do we communicate this performance, ESG performance to the supplier? How do we use that ESG performance to attribute business to one supplier versus the other? So it's basically everything that goes around it. So this is our sustainable procurement framework. I will not now, well, before diving into the zero carbon project, just to illustrate what Dan was mentioning, is that we have those 11+1 Schneider sustainability impact. So those are the commitments that we took by 2025. Just to show you that 1/3 of those 4 that I covered previously in my previous slides are driven by procurement. It is huge knowing that we report on the progress on those commitments, on those 12 commitments, including those 4 from procurement on a quarterly basis. Whenever we do our quarterly financials publication, we do report on those. You have to know that everybody in Schneider Electric that has a bonus has their bonus impacted by those. That means marketing people, salespeople are impacted by how well or not we are in procurement driving those programs as well. So let's deep dive into the zero carbon project. Then before that, the big picture about our net zero roadmap. So if I'm looking, well, it's traditional. You have the scope 1 and 2. Our scope 1 and 2 is between 0.3 and 0.4 megaton. The supplier scope 3 is 7.3 megaton. So you see that it's 20 times bigger than our own scope 1 and 2. So what we buy from our supplier has a CO2 footprint more than 20 times bigger than our own operation in our 200 factories, 100 DCs, and hundreds of different buildings. The scope 3 downstream is about 60 megaton. Sorry. So the net zero roadmap that we have is that by 2050, we will be, of course, net zero across the entire value chain. So it's scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 upstream and downstream. And we set up a series of intermediate milestones, like by 2040 to be end-to-end carbon neutral over the entire value chain. By 2030 to be net zero operation for our scope 1 and 2. And we will be carbon neutral for our own operation scope 1 and 2 by 2025. And you see here the zero carbon project, how it plays, where, I mean, it's the first foundation to start working with the suppliers. Important for to understand that. So let me walk you through now the history and what we did implement and tell you more about what I meant by collaboration, what we put together to support our suppliers. So first of all, we divide the zero carbon projects in 3 phases, overlapping, of course, because not each supplier is going in the same speed. Analytics, measuring the carbon footprint. Ambition, setting the target. Why do we have this setting the target? Because we ask the supplier to set their own targets to start with, and I'll come back to that. And the third one is action, which we divided in 3 phases, or 3 different actions. One, which is energy efficiency. Second is electrification. Third one is renewable, and I'll come back to that. So in terms of timeline, we did a big bang announce kickoff of the program that was back in April 21. It was with Dan, with our CPO, with our chief supply chain officer, chief strategy and sustainable officer, with a video of our CEO of Jean-Pascal, in which we invite those 1,000 targeted suppliers to explain what we wanted to do. And that was important to do this big bang announcement. Then quickly after, we move into maturity assessment. Here we discovered that 70%, I'm mentioning 70% of our suppliers were new to decarbonization, which means they even didn't know how to compute their carbon footprint. So based on that, we built 2 technical trainings, one for beginners for the 70%, more than 700 suppliers, and one for the most advanced, so that they don't waste their time, a full end-to-end trainings. This was prepared by more than 17 different subject matter experts from Schneider Electric. Yes, I'm lucky. As we explained, as Dan explained, we are in that business, so I have all of the experts around me. So we delivered that training. It was more than 3 hours. And then we launched a multitude of different support. Peer-to-peer exchange. For example, every month at the beginning, I was putting all of the community, so the 1,000 suppliers together, in which we're sharing best practices. We started by sharing our own best practices. Then we invited suppliers to share their own best practices in terms of decarbonization. So we had big suppliers coming and sharing it. Create also, I would say, a healthy, positive little competition. A lot of hand-holding sessions, a lot of one-to-one sessions with our suppliers, and you need to be ready to invest time into that. Very specific trainings that we put together. We launched then a digital platform called Neo Network, in which the supplier can find all of the supporting documents, trainings, tools to accelerate the decarbonization. We launched, mid of last year, a second phase of that, which includes some additional premium content, but also a digital emission calculator, because my team was delivering, among all of the trainings, like 50 sessions of live training to explain to the supplier how to decarbonize, but that was not enough, so we introduced a digital emission calculator. We kick off last year the supply chain renewable initiative, and this was covered, I think, by Robert from AstraZeneca earlier today with the Energize program. It's similar. So basically, what we developed for the pharmaceutical companies with Energize, we have the same for our suppliers. So basically, it's a lot of trainings about renewables, and then the capability of bringing suppliers together, combining their needs in terms of green electricity, building cohorts, building disaggregation, so that we're big enough with this cohort of suppliers to be able to invest into a new green power plant, being solar cells or windmills plant. And then we will be launching end of this month. Again, 2/3 of our suppliers are SMEs. We will be launching a full suite of a digital suite to address SME needs. So basically, in that suite, in that platform, they will be able to compute the carbon footprint, to set targets. This platform will then tell them what are the access for them to decarbonize based on the primary energy source that they enter into the calculator, as well as the region in which the supplier is, and will even leading the suppliers up to a marketplace, which for now is a little bit empty, but if a supplier really wants to go concretely and execute one of the recommendations we give, they can go to a marketplace in which they can find provider that will be providing that support. So it's summarized into the support framework that you see here. Capacity building, critical digital tools are covered, experts advisory, and customer support. Something I forgot to mention was about the iAccelerate that you see here. So basically what we're also doing in terms of supporting our suppliers is bringing them all together into what we call iAccelerate Zero Carbon Days. So it's a full 1 or 2 days event in which we're only speaking with suppliers about decarbonization. We did it last week for Europe, 2 weeks ago for Europe, in which we invited 150 suppliers. They had the morning of the first day plenary session, the afternoon of the first day. They had workshops. They had a marketplace showcasing from what we can provide them, but also from other people can provide them to decarbonize. And the second day, we secured 300 slots, which suppliers could subscribe to, in which they got free consulting services by SMEs. So we had about 10 different themes. They have to subscribe before the event, of course, coming prepared. But so they were able to ask ourselves the questions where they were blocking to decarbonize. And all this is translating now in some results. We have 1,015 active suppliers. We reached more than 10% reduction end of last year. 95% of the suppliers have computed their carbon footprint. Early in January 2022, it was only 10%. So you see an addition of 85 points in 1 year. And more than 65% of suppliers already declare emission reduction. So before moving into the Henkel part, and I will introduce Kate, I want to quickly conclude here. So the key learning, or what you have to remember, the first point I would say is you need to act now. Don't have to wait that everything is perfect. The planet can wait. You favor speed over perfection. This is what we have been doing so far. You need to take bold objectives, make sure that those are endorsed at all levels in your company, and actually even taken at the highest level of your company. You have to make it simple and as simple as possible to your suppliers to quickly engage them. Involve the executive from the suppliers, but make sure that the first step in the program is a reasonable one for the suppliers. You don't have to show like a big step, they will not engage. You need to create that momentum. You need to have the suppliers engaging, knowing, okay, I can do it, and then you accelerate the program. And lastly, be ready to involve resources for capability building, through, I told you, trainings, tools, one-to-one support, community calls, forums, and so on. Okay, all this is good, but it is just me speaking from Schneider Electric. What I want now is basically to see how is it perceived and lived by our suppliers. So I'm happy to welcome now Henkel, one of our strategic suppliers, to tell us their view and how they lived it from their side. And it's my pleasure to welcome Kate Glesser, Corporate VP of Industrial at Henkel. So Kate, again, huge thank you for being with us today in this event. Before we jump into how you see it and how you have been living this decarbonization, I want to ask you, can you tell us a little bit, who is Henkel?
Sure, Christoph, first of all, thank you so much for having me and having Henkel here. I want to say I've been excited about all the programs you're working on before this, but hearing this one more time is just giving me so much energy. So thrilled to be here. Really quickly on Henkel, we're a 146-year-old science company. We create products for both the consumer space, beauty care and laundry, and home care, as well as the adhesive space, which I work in, bonding, sealing, coating, and thermal management for just about anything. We're headquartered in Dusseldorf, Germany. Then we have a global footprint. And something interesting, since our founding, we've been developing innovative products and manufacturing processes that save resources and cut waste. And we even published our first environmental report way back in 1992. So just a quick look at Henkel.
So Kate, can you give us an overview of the partnership that Schneider and Henkel has today?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. We've actually, between the two of us, have been working together for what I understand is about decades long. So quite a long relationship. And it's special also because not only does our Henkel adhesive business sell to Schneider, but our consumer business on that side is a customer of Schneider. So it's quite a relationship between the two. Just to give you an example or two, we have about 400 of our materials that are used on Schneider Electric systems, such as UPS and switch gears. And as the power density increases, as heat increases, and our thermal management solutions really help improve resource efficiency. On the other side, you guys, Schneider Electric, oversees about 100 million euro plus energy spend for Henkel. And with energy efficiency enhancements yielding roughly 2 million euro a year in savings. So already quite a mutual relationship. But about 18 months ago or 2 years ago or so, as we started, Henkel started down much more active discussion around sustainability with our customers, and you guys were driving heavily in this direction. It became very easy for both of us to find a joint path forward. The program that really got us started is the one you just talked pretty detailed about here, the Zero Carbon program, which I think at this point everyone's pretty clear on, but for us it was super exciting. And this really is exciting because we were delighted that Schneider had integrated sustainability as a key selection criteria when choosing your suppliers. It's interesting because it takes courage to do that. You know, not everybody in the market is doing it at the same time. And so to be out there doing it first and running down that path was very exciting for us because it matched up where we were going as well. We like it as a good starting point for our collaboration and a really wonderful way for Henkel to have been invited to share our best practices. One that we're very proud of is in the last decade, our CO2 emissions have been reduced by 50%. So as we found that so much of our vision and strategy around sustainability and how we do business in the future were similar, and you can see that really from the overlapping cross in the middle here, it gave us an opportunity to really shift our relationship. So from being transactional into moving to much more of a strategic partnership. And the partnership is built on layers of experience, of trust, and a key enabler of that trust is really the transparency, which is a pillar for both of our sustainability strategies. As we got deeper into the development of how we would work together on Zero Carbon project, it led to a mutually beneficial push-pull effect that we help each other along on this journey. This push-pull, as you can see, and this transparency and this enablement, you can see in this figure 8 here, really has led us to do even more than just the Zero Carbon. Great examples include a recent Henkel large-scale virtual power purchase agreement in which the capability from a Texas wind farm will equal 100% of electric demand of Henkel's US-based production sites. And this was advised on by Schneider Electric's Energy and Sustainability Services. So a big thank you for that. In our laundry and home care operations, we employ an Aviva digital backbone leading to reduced energy consumption and improved resource efficiency. And as you can see, having this common mindset, this agile approach, Henkel and Schneider were able to engage in tangible collaboration programs today and into the future.
Thank you, Kate, for this collaboration aid, as you say. Now, you spoke about the sustainability strategy at Henkel. Can you briefly summarize Henkel's approach to sustainability globally?
Yeah, so pretty quickly, our approach is to proactively drive the most impactful elements along the entire value chain. So with the goal of achieving significant progress in both short-term and long-term. We drive focus areas of climate, circularity, and health and safety, as you can see on the left in the circles. And then through leading by example with sustainable operations and sustainable materials, as you see in red, we take responsibility for our own footprint with the aspiration to be the first global adhesives player with climate positive operations by 2030. And as the materials we use are the highest emissions contributor within our value chain, we have the ambition to offer net zero or low emissions products to all our customers. Beyond this, we lead via technology, and to enable sustainability, our vision is to offer every customer solution and services that enable them to reduce their emissions and drive circularity. And on the bottom here, you see transparency. As I said before, transparency is our number one that we continue to drive to make sure everybody has the visibility up and down the value chain on what it is we are doing around emissions.
Thank you. What within this partnership has been the most impactful, and what are the key learnings that you as a company take out of that?
Yeah, I think this is it goes back to what you said in your vision statement as well, right? So the clearest, cleanest, most impactful learning that we have in sustainability, it's really collaboration and it's really a team game. And it's really the only way to win, right? For our communities, for our future, that we have to do this together. So as we point out here, right, the mutual understanding, we are encouraged to expand the engagement beyond zero carbon project, moving to innovation, sustainable packaging, and optimization of logistics as examples. We're open-minded, right? And that's one of the greatest parts of our partnership is understanding that the task is difficult and we do not have the solutions today, but we will find the solutions if we work together, which leads to that comment around collaboration. How do we proactively work together with a mindset that the outcome is greater than the sum of the parts? One basic learning we had internally, actually, is if we want to drive sustainability within Henkel and with our customers and with the world, it needs to not only sit within corporate sustainability functions. And that's really one of the biggest pieces as we work holistically with everyone together. There's always going to be gaps, but obviously the more we can work together, we'll find ways to close those gaps and find tools and find processes to move forward. And of course, being agile. At the end of the day, we need to make sure that we make choices and move when we see other options in front of us. So as it says here, it's a long journey, but it has a large impact, and that's what we want to work on together. And it's really a proof point that you and us have worked together so well to drive this forward.
And, you know, you spoke about alignment. Was this alignment between the two companies beneficial for Henkel?
Hugely beneficial. And I think the collaboration has really helped us understand what's truly possible when we have this aligned mutual partnership. And I will say one thing that it has done for us holistically, it's been a spark in our organization that people have seen what can actually be done and use it as a role model when these two like-minded companies who come from very different areas and have very different core competencies really roll up our sleeves together and work at what's most important. And I think that for me is really this idea that you see here around purposeful partnerships. And that's really my closing statement. If you could pick anything to work on, you want to be on a purposeful partnership with our customers, and same with us, with our suppliers on the other side, to make sure that we guarantee that we see the big picture, what's best for our customers, what's best for our communities, and what's best for the world at large. So once again, Christophe, I just want to say a big thank you. We're so excited to work with you on this and look forward to the future that we work on this together.
Same here. Thanks a lot, Kate, for your sharing. It was really eye-opening and very insightful. Thank you. So I'll hand it over to you, Oliver, for the Q&A.
Fantastic. What a session. I think I've never seen so many questions. I've never seen so many excitement about the questions. I've never seen so many comments and positivity. I've never seen so much envy about how good your program is, even how good your CPO is at answering all the questions that have been asked while you're talking, Christoph. So, I mean, we all need a CPO like that. So, I mean, there is so many questions. First of all, I think the first thing to do is we're never going to do these questions justice in 15 minutes. So one thing I was going to ask all three of you, in fact, is whether we might follow this session up with a bit of a sort of a blog of Q&A questions that we might turn into something that we can add to this recording and then turn it into something even better. So that's my first request. The second request is, and again, I think this is linked to something within the SPP, is content and knowledge like this is fantastic, and it's a recording and people can watch it back and people can have your slides. But I wonder if there's an opportunity, and I don't want to put you on the spot now, to start to turn some of these amazing frameworks into something we can almost white label and start to give people and sort of allow them to fill in the gaps a little bit. I mean, even the way that you have that beautiful figure of 8 in your relationship between you and Henkel, I think tells a story that could be copied between many supplier relationships all over the world. So just great work, people. Honestly, fantastic, excellent work. So I do want to pick up a couple of questions that maybe Dan didn't necessarily cover, but there is some fantastic points around this. I think Michelle's question here about how you help train your own staff up about the goals and the targets and what challenges you've come across with them. So I think this is something that's at the heart of the SPP. How do you fundamentally capability build procurement to own this? Because it feels like very much it's like it is that famous embedded thing that everyone wants it to be. Maybe Christoph, you can pick that one up.
Now, maybe I can start, and Christoph, you can add some additional commentary. One important point is, as I articulated, sustainability really is at the heart of our company, right? It's at the core of the value proposition that we offer to customers like Henkel, right? And many others. And I think I see many people in this company have a close personal connection, right? When your personal values align well with the company values, you become engaged, you become motivated, right? And I think we have that. We have that in procurement to a large extent. So people want to have an impact. They don't necessarily know how, right? So that's where our business comes in. And like Christoph said, we're pretty lucky to have that, sustainability as a business in our company. So we have an army of people that can help teach our teams how to drive those topics forward. So, it's not easy to replicate that. I fully acknowledge, but that's the situation that we have in Schneider. I don't know, CQ, if you want to add anything to that.
No, I mean, I fully agree. The motivation is amazing. I mean, and personally, the reason I joined Schneider Electric 11 years ago was exactly for that. So I'm extremely happy to be here and living it every day. Now, the point that I want to add is that we have a lot of motivation from procurement people. So what we are working with HR is a training, I would say, or scaling up for people to transform what I say, the motivation into competences. So it's something that we set up together. It's not launched yet, but it's about 40 hours of different trainings on sustainability on top of what they had already, plus then a project that people will have to perform and present in front of Dan and other people. So just to be able to help the people to transform this motivation into deep competencies. Now we have everything around us from experts, subject matter experts, that we can leverage. So it's really I would say I'm spoiled driving sustainable procurement to be in a company like Schneider Electric. Then it goes also into all of the details. Back to the question about how do we measure and so on. So for example, the scorecard, the biggest square or the biggest part of the scorecard is about sustainability. And I think Dan covered that earlier in another presentation today. When we have a QBR as an example, quarterly business review, we start with sustainability in Schneider Electric. So it shows us it's not only words saying it's everywhere, it's also something that we apply in our daily life.
Yeah, excellent. I feel compelled to ask the question that do you think it's easier for Schneider Electric because you in effect, because of the nature of what you do, you commercialize sustainability? Is it easier to embed sustainability when you're part of the solution as well as part of the challenge?
To me,
I can't wait to hear your answer to this, Christophe.
okay, so I would not say it's easier to drive the results, but it's much more quicker to engage and to have solutions. Yes. Now, again, and I want to stress that we're not forcing anything to the suppliers. Suppliers, what we want is to give them all of the tools and the means for them to decarbonize. They don't have to knock at our door for getting a solution. Whenever, I was telling you about the iAccelerate event, so the decarbonization day, we do invite other companies as well in the marketplace, definitely. So suppliers is able to use whatever. So it's easier because we have all of the experts internally. Now, at the end of the day, the work resides into the suppliers to decarbonize. So our work to make sure that we embark them, that we motivate them, that we work with them. I was telling you about the one-to-one support. And I have those people in each of the regions that can go on site to the supplier to do the what we call sustainability development with suppliers. It's support that we have to provide to the suppliers. Now, definitely easier for the part I said and quicker because we have solution internally. We have all the SMEs internally. Yeah. Dan, you want to add it to that?
No, I think you summarized it well, Christophe.
Excellent. We have to take the top voted question. I think that's science and statistics says we must. But Andrew asked, did Christophe and team start with defining the 7 projects in environmental and social internally before engaging suppliers, or did you invite vendors to help you define those goals?
Oh, it's a good one. And we have been in some of the programs impacting or changing the way we address it with the feedback of the suppliers. That's definitely. Let's take an obvious example on the green material. Green material is a very good example in which, if you don't engage and somehow co-define, again, we want to be supplier agnostic when we go to a green material, but to define what is feasible in the market, we cannot do that alone. Same on sustainable packaging. We had to face reality in some of the regions that the recycled cardboard cannot be the same in each of the region. Actually, there is one region in which it's different. So we take all those inputs. Decent work. We are getting the first result now. So we did not decide, but we may think of adapting the way we're addressing it as well. And by the way we build the trainings is based on the difficulty that our suppliers are facing. I was telling you in decent work, living wage is one of the most difficult one to explain. Well, we know that we then need to start being focused and addressing this, building trainings, explaining how it is not just costing, but it will also improve, the way the employees are happy and the rotation and so on. So we are taking all of those inputs from the suppliers to adapt our program.
Yeah. We do need to finish up because we've got another session straight after this, and I think I'm involved somehow, so we need to for my own sanity. But this has been probably one of the star moments of the day, and I think it is an example of genuine best practice, I think, both from you, Henkel, and for Schneider Electric. So I'm just going to ask each of you just to maybe give one final point and thought for those listening in who are frankly envious, excited, inspired, frustrated, or whatever they're feeling, but they're certainly all feeling something. So maybe I might start with you, Kate, just in terms of you and your relationship with Schneider Electric. What's been one piece of advice that you'd share from being part of that figure of 8?
I'm going to give 2 if that is okay, but one is to just get started. And so just open the door and get started. And number 2, I would say to be really open, right? Be comfortable with your weaknesses, be comfortable with the things you want to work on, and let that conversation really take shape. Because I think at the end of the day, one of the wonderful things we've had the relationship is the ability to really say where we all want to head and how do we get there together. But that's had to be a very open conversation that may not have existed if you're only talking price and volume every day.
Excellent. Dan, I'm going to come to you last, which makes it more difficult for you, but you know, that's fair. CQ?
So simply, I would say be bold. Don't spend too much time in defining. I mean, start acting now and fix it later. And keep the faith. Sometimes you go into very difficult times because of those bold objectives. What I used to say, using the sentence of Mark Twain, saying they did it because they didn't know it wasn't possible. But that's what it should guide us in this sustainable journey with our suppliers. Great
points. Dan, have they stolen all your stuff, or have you got something
No,
left?
I can always, repackage things that others have said. No, but seriously speaking, if you're a buyer, you're in a position of power, right? And with great power comes great responsibility, right? So my advice would be, lean into this, right? So like Christoph said, be bold, but don't let that boldness stop you from getting started, right? Start to build up the momentum. And get help, right? Absolutely get help when and where you need it. Christoph is pretty good at begging and borrowing resources from throughout our organization. And things like the Sustainable Procurement Pledge, this organization, this group of companies, we're here to help, right? You asked before, can we share some of these frameworks? Absolutely, because that only helps us, right? If more of companies like ours are pulling in the same direction, including our competitors, that makes it easier for us to achieve our targets, right? And collectively, we'll have a bigger impact.
Yeah. With great power comes great responsibility. Dan, you are Spider-Man, apparently. That's you and him are the same. A huge thanks, guys. That's been brilliant. I mean, genuinely a diamond in the crown, a jewel in the crown of today already. I know that's putting a little bit of pressure on the other sessions later, but we've still got some time to go. But that was absolutely superb. That felt like 2 hours somehow. It was really, really, really good. Thank you, guys. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. So we have got loads of questions. I'm sure you'll agree. We're happy to follow this up with some kind of extra conversation, extra content. But yes, just superb. Keep up the good work, and maybe let some other people win some awards for once. I know you keep claiming them all, but maybe you could be a bit more collaborative there. But otherwise, thanks everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.